This voice was produced and typecast, an artificial intelligence
Technology,
voice service.
ever-changing and ever-growing, brings us the future we've always imagined. But how did it get to where we are now? And where will it go next? Did you know that you could earn money for finding bugs with Facebook? Do you know the actual meaning of Android, or how much of the world's currency is digital? With these 25 tech facts, you'll find interesting tidbits from computers and the internet to gaming gadgets and tech giants such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft. So without further ado, here are the top 24 surprising technology facts that you probably didn't know. 1. The first Apple logo isn't what you would think. Originally, it featured Sir Isaac Newton sitting beneath a tree, with an apple about to fall on his head. It was designed back in 1976 and featured a phrase around the border that read, "Newton, mind forever voyaging through strange seas of thought alone." 2. Google rents out goats. You read that right. Instead of mowing their lawn, Google rents goats to eat the grass at their Mountain View headquarters. A herder will bring 200 goats which are herded by a border collie named Jen. 3. The name for robot has dark origins. If you look into the etymology of robot, it comes from the Czech word robota, which translates to forced labor or work. The word was first used to refer to a fictional humanoid in a play in 1920. 4. The first ever VCR was the size of a piano. When the first VCR, video camera recorder, was made in 1956, it was the size of a piano. Way bigger than I would have guessed. 5. Samsung is 38 years and 1 month older than Apple. Samsung was founded as a grocery store on March 1, 1938, by Lee Byung-chul. Apple founders Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak created Apple Computer Incorporated on April 1, 1976. 6. The radio took 38 years to reach an audience of 50 million. You would think the invention of the radio would be a big deal, but it took 38 years for the radio to reach an audience of 50 million. Meanwhile, the iPod only took 3 years to reach the same milestone. 7. The first camera needed an incredibly long exposure. The first photograph ever taken in 1826 took 8 hours to expose. The creator of that camera, Louis Daguerre, was able to lower that time drastically to just 15 minutes in 1839. 8. Credit card chips have been around for a long time. To many, credit card chips are a relatively new fad. However, chip technology has been around since 1986. It was first used in France, followed shortly after by Germany. 9. Alexa is always listening to your conversations. This probably isn't new to you. Siri has been doing it forever. Alexa stores your dialogue history in its cloud to help improve your Alexa experience. But you can review and delete these recordings, either in bulk or individually. 10. The first computer mouse wasn't made from plastic. Back in 1964, Doug and Gilbert invented the first ever computer mouse. Back then, it was made out of wood. It was rectangular and featured a little button on the top right. He called it a mouse because the cord coming out of the back reminded him of the tiny rodents. 11. The original spots had sound snippets of real space missions. The original spots contained edited sound bites from actual transmissions from the Apollo missions. If you left this box on the home screen, eventually, you'll hear whispers of conversation, actual chatter from the Apollo mission. 12. The majority of people plug in their USB wrong. 86% of people try to plug in their USB devices upside down. That makes me feel a lot better about getting it wrong every time. 13. The first alarm clock could only ring at one time. Literally, one time. The first mechanical alarm clock could only ring at 4 a.m. Invented by Levi Hutchins in 1787. It wasn't until 1876 that a wind-up alarm clock was made that could be set for any time. 14. The government used PlayStation 3s, but not for gaming. In 2010, the United States Air Force used 1,760 PlayStation 3 consoles to build a supercomputer for the Department of Defense. They used PS3s because it was more cost-efficient and green. 15. The first online gaming was before the year 2000. Sega Dreamcast was the first 128-bit console to hit the market. Released in 1999, it was the first console that allowed real-time online play. Unfortunately, it was a little too early for its time. as back then, most internet connections were not reliable enough. 16. Apollo 11 astronauts couldn't afford insurance. Life insurance for a space mission cost a fortune because the risks were extremely high back then. So instead, the astronauts of Apollo 11 signed hundreds of covers that their families could sell in case anything went wrong. 17. People are still using dial-up. As of 2017, 2.1 million people still use AOL's dial-up service. Mainly, these customers live in rural America, where it can be expensive and unreliable to get high-speed internet. Meanwhile, dial-up is only $20 per month. 18. Android is gender-specific. The word android literally means a human with a male robot appearance. The female equivalent of this word is a gynoid. 19. The first cell phone call was in New York City. In 1973, the first ever mobile phone call was made by Martin Cooper, an employee of Motorola, made from the streets of New York City. It wasn't until 19 years later when Neil Papworth sent the first SMS message, which brings us to our next tech fact. 20. The first commercial text message was sent in 1992. On December 3, 1992, a software architect, Sima Group, used a computer to text "Merry Christmas" to a Vodafone employee who was using an Orbital 901 handset. These days, over 6 billion texts are sent per day. 21. NASA's internet speed is 91 gigabytes per second. The average household internet speeds are roughly 25 MB per second, which is usually fast enough to watch Netflix with no buffer time. And let's face the fact, if there's any tech company that would actually make good use of their internet speeds, it's NASA. 22. The most expensive phone number cost millions. Back in 2006, Qatar Telecom hosted a charity auction where they sold the phone number 666 to 6,666. It sold for $2.75 million, bought by an anonymous bidder. 23. There are only 21 million bitcoins that can be mined in total. You'd think as it's a digital currency, the number of bitcoins available would be unlimited. However, if this was the case, that would devalue the currency and render it worthless. 24. Google searches hit the billions every month. There are over 35 billion Google searches each month. In May 2019, the top 3 most Googled words were Facebook, with 233 million searches, YouTube, with 194 million searches, and Amazon, with 103 million searches. 25. The first webpage is still running. In 1991, Tim Berners-Lee was working on developing the World Wide Web. There are no graphics and no background, just plain text and links on how to use the internet. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel.